The 10th Weasley. Chapter 5. Harry watched with wide eyes as Arthur and Molly Weasley demonstrated the Flu network over the past week. The way they tossed the shimmering green powder into the fireplace, turning the flames into a swirling emerald vortex, was nothing short of magical. Each time they departed, it felt like stepping into a dream, and now, it was his turn to experience that magic for himself.
As the moment approached, a wave of nervousness washed over him. What if he messed it up? What if he ended up in the wrong place? He could already picture himself tumbling out of a fireplace and into a stranger's living room. Noticing Harry's apprehension, Arthur knelt beside him. "Don't worry, Harry. I'll go first, and you can follow right after me. Just remember to say, 'the burrow,' clearly, and you'll be just fine." Harry nodded, trying to steady his breathing. "Okay, I think I can do this." With a reassuring smile, Arthur stepped into the fireplace, tossed in the powder, and called out, "The burrow." In an instant, he vanished in a flash of green flame. Harry felt a rush of excitement. "See? Easy as pie." Molly encouraged him, giving his shoulder a gentle squeeze before stepping aside. Harry moved into the fireplace, the feeling of the soot beneath his bare feet grounding him. He took a deep breath, grabbing a handful of the sparkling powder and throwing it into the flames. The fire roared to life, its color shifting into vibrant green. "The burrow!" he shouted, and just like that, he felt a tug at his very core, as if he were being pulled through a tunnel of warmth. But as he landed, Harry didn't quite hit the ground as he had expected. Instead, he stumbled out of the fireplace, tripping over his own feet and rolling onto the floor with a soft thud. He blinked up at a scene that felt like a vibrant dream. He was in a cozy living room filled with children of all ages, all sporting the unmistakable Weasley red hair. Laughter echoed around him, and colorful decorations adorned the walls. Harry's heart raced with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Suddenly, Harry's eyes fell on a large banner being held by Fred and George. In bright, shifting letters, it read, "Welcome to the family, Harry Weasley." The twins beamed with mischief and pride, their enthusiasm infectious. Then he noticed a little girl standing shyly nearby, clutching a bouquet of wildflowers. Her bright brown eyes sparkled with hope as she stepped forward, raising the bouquet toward him. "Is it for me?" he asked, his voice trembling with wonder. The girl nodded, a shy smile spreading across her face. He carefully took the flowers from her small hands, and her eyes lit up like stars. "Those are beautiful," Harry exclaimed, taking a moment to admire the bouquet. The wildflowers were a riot of colors, each one more vibrant than the last, and the thought that she had picked them just for him warmed his heart. Just then, Molly arrived through the fireplace, her face beaming with happiness. "Harry, you made it," she exclaimed, kneeling beside him. "I see you've met Ginny." "Ginny?" Harry repeated, glancing at the little girl, who was now blushing furiously. "Yes. She's the youngest of the bunch. And look at that bouquet. You'll fit right in with this lot," Molly said, her eyes twinkling as she surveyed the scene. "Can we keep him?" Fred asked, a grin plastered across his face. "He's already passed the flower test." George chimed in, "And he's a Weasley now. That means he's stuck with us." Molly chuckled. "Let's give him a moment to breathe first, shall we? Harry, these are your brothers. Bill, Charlie, Percy, Fred, George, Ron, and Ginny. You'll get to know them all very soon." Harry's heart swelled with a sense of belonging. As he looked around at the warm, welcoming faces, he knew that this chaotic, lively family was exactly what he had longed for. "Welcome home, Harry," Molly said, pulling him into a hug. The warmth enveloped him, and for the first time in his life, he felt safe and loved. The burdens of his past began to lift, replaced by the promise of new beginnings and a family that would stand by him through thick and thin. The day was a whirlwind of excitement and laughter, the likes of which Harry had never experienced before. With his new siblings clamoring around him, each eager to show him their favorite parts of the burrow, he felt as if he had stepped into a fantastical world. It was strange, yet exhilarating, to be the center of attention for once. "Come on, Harry. You have to see my room first," Fred shouted, pulling on Harry's arm with an exuberant grin. "No, mine is cooler," George argued, jumping in front of them with his hands on his hips. "I have a pet gnome in my room." "What's a gnome?" Harry asked, intrigued. Just you wait and see, George replied, winking mischievously. As they bickered, Ginny piped up, I've got the best toys. You have to see my dolls. Ron, watching the chaos unfold, rolled his eyes dramatically. You all are ridiculous. Harry's going to see my room first. We can play wizard chess. There was a comical uproar as the siblings negotiated, bartered, and bribed one another. Fred and George offered Harry some of their prized firecrackers in exchange for a tour of their room first. Harry's heart warmed at their enthusiasm, a stark contrast to the indifference he had known at the Dursleys. Here, he felt wanted, cared for, and, most importantly, he was part of something. Okay. Let's go see Ron's room, Harry finally decided, laughing as the others cheered in agreement, momentarily setting aside their bickering. As they made their way through the burrow, Harry was captivated by its whimsical architecture. The house leaned at odd angles, with mismatched furniture and quirky decor that made it feel alive. It was as if the very walls were filled with laughter and love, a far cry from the sterile, cold environment he had known before. Each corner held a new surprise, from portraits of smiling Weasleys to odd trinkets that sparkled in the sunlight. When they finally reached Ron's room, it was a cozy space, filled with clutter and charm. Posters of Quidditch teams adorned the walls, and the shelves were lined with well-loved books and wizarding cards. Ron eagerly showed Harry his collection, flipping through the cards with pride. See? This one's a famous chaser, and this one has a cool power, Ron explained, his enthusiasm infectious. I've been collecting them for ages. Harry smiled as he scanned the cards, intrigued by the various players and creatures depicted. He had never owned anything like this before, and it felt thrilling to share Ron's excitement. This is your bed, Ron said, pointing to the narrow cot beside his own. And the clothes in that drawer are hand-me-downs from Fred and George. Sorry about that. Harry shrugged, waving it off. I don't mind. I've worn hand-me-downs before. They're pretty comfy.
Ron looked relieved. Good. Because we hardly ever get anything new around here. It's always Fred and George's old stuff, and then there's Percy's too. By the time it gets to me, it's practically ancient.
Harry chuckled. At least you're not alone. I'm used to it. The boys settled into their space, surrounded by the warm chaos of Ron's belongings. Harry's heart swelled at the thought of sharing a room, a space where he wouldn't have to hide away or feel invisible. They played wizard chess, with Harry quickly discovering Ron's prowess on the board. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt this carefree. It was as if the weight of his past had lifted, replaced by the promise of new friendships and adventures. After the whirlwind of excitement inside the burrow, Harry was eager to explore the outside. The moment he stepped through the door, he found himself awestruck. The burrow itself looked like something out of a storybook, with its haphazardly stacked rooms and wonky rooflines, as if it had been playfully tossed together by a giant. Bill. How does it even stay standing? Harry asked, unable to hide his amazement. With a knowing grin, Bill replied, one word, magic. He gestured for Harry to follow him as he stepped outside, where the sun bathed everything in a warm glow. As they walked around the property, Harry felt as if he were in a completely different world. The burrow was situated in the midst of a sprawling expanse of green, surrounded by wildflowers and tall grass swaying gently in the breeze. It felt wonderfully secluded, with no neighbors in sight, just rolling hills and the sound of birds chirping. Isn't it beautiful? Ron asked, taking in the scene. It's our favorite place to play. It's amazing. Harry replied, his eyes wide as he took in the landscape. How far does it go? Pretty far. Ginny chimed in, bouncing beside him. There's a stream back there, and sometimes we go fishing. Charlie usually catches the biggest ones. Charlie laughed and pointed toward a small shed not far from the house. That's Dad's garage. He experiments with Muggle inventions in there. You'd be surprised by what he comes up with. Harry furrowed his brow. Do wizards own cars? Nope. Charlie replied with a grin. Dad prefers to tinker with Muggle stuff. It's pretty cool, actually. You should see some of the things he's built. As they continued their tour, they reached the small stream that meandered through the property, its clear water sparkling in the sunlight. Harry knelt down, letting his fingers trail through the cool water. It felt refreshing and alive, and he couldn't help but smile at the thought of all the adventures he could have here. Come on, "Let's go back to the house," Bill said, suddenly excited. "I want to show you something." They followed Bill as he led them back toward the burrow. To Harry's surprise, he pulled out a broomstick from a hidden corner. "Look at this!" Bill exclaimed, holding it up proudly. "My old broom. I'll show you how to fly." Harry's heart raced with excitement. "You can fly on that?" "Absolutely." Bill grinned. "It's one of the coolest things you'll ever do. Just watch." With that, Bill mounted the broomstick and shot up into the sky. Harry watched in awe as Bill soared higher, twisting and looping through the air with an ease that seemed almost magical. The way he glided above the burrow, the wind rushing past him, was mesmerizing. "I want to try. I really want to learn," Harry shouted, jumping up and down as he watched Bill fly. "Don't worry, Harry," Charlie assured him, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "We'll teach you, it's easier than it looks." As Bill landed back on the ground, he laughed at Harry's enthusiasm. "All right, but first we need to make sure you're ready. Flying isn't just about hopping on a broom. You need to learn some basics." Harry nodded eagerly, his heart pounding with anticipation. The thought of flying, of being in the air like a bird, filled him with joy. This was a world where he could finally belong, where magic was real, and where he could be part of something bigger than himself. The rest of the afternoon was filled with laughter and stories, as Bill and Charlie began explaining the ins and outs of broom flying. As Harry listened, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had finally found his place. The burrow was more than just a house. It was the start of a brand new adventure, and he couldn't wait to see where it would take him. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the burrow, Harry sat on the porch, taking in the sights and sounds of his new life. Laughter echoed around him as his new siblings engaged in playful banter, their red hair catching the last rays of sunlight. A warm breeze rustled through the trees, and the scent of freshly baked pies wafted from the kitchen, filling the air with comfort. In that moment, Harry felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. It was a stark contrast to the loneliness and neglect he had endured at the Dursleys' home. Here, surrounded by warmth and acceptance, he realized just how blessed he truly was. Each of his new siblings had welcomed him into their chaotic lives, eager to share everything they had, stories, laughter, and even their secrets.
"I wouldn't trade any of this for treasures or fame," he thought, a small smile creeping onto his face. "Not for anything. The freedom to be himself, the chance to laugh and play without fear of being scolded or ignored, this was worth more than he had ever imagined."
As he watched Ginny chase after a butterfly, her giggles ringing through the evening air, Harry felt a wave of emotion swell in his chest. He remembered the days spent alone in his cupboard, the nights spent wondering if anyone would ever love him. Now, he was not just a boy lost in the shadows, he was Harry Weasley, part of a family that embraced him without hesitation. Molly's laughter floated out from the kitchen, followed by Arthur's gentle voice. They were sharing stories of their day, their love for each other evident in every word. Harry could hardly believe that this warmth was meant for him too. The more he learned about the Weasley family, the more he understood that they had taken him in not out of obligation, but out of love. For the first time in his life, he felt he was exactly where he belonged.